the risk that opened an unimagined path. Every career reaches a moment when a familiar no longer feels like enough. A moment when the safest choice becomes the one that quietly limits us. And for one person, that moment arrived disguised as a risk, one so uncertain, so unpredictable, it seemed unreasonable to even consider. Yet that risk would become the turning point that opened a future they never knew existed. Risk is often portrayed as reckless, something to avoid unless absolutely necessary. But in a world defined by rapid change and evolving industries, risk is sometimes the only path toward growth. It disrupts our assumptions, pushes us past our comfort, and reveals strengths we didn't know we had. Before the shift, their life was steady, predictable, structured. They had built a career based on reliability, mastering each role with patience and dedication. Their progress was slow but consistent, the kind of trajectory that earned respect but rarely invited reinvention. And they believed that consistency would eventually lead to fulfillment. But beneath the surface, a quiet restlessness had begun to grow. Not dissatisfaction, just an awareness that their future felt smaller than their potential. They tried to ignore it, burying it beneath routine and commitment. Yet the feeling resurfaced again and again, each time clearer than before. Then came the opportunity. Unexpected, unplanned, slightly unreasonable. It was a role in a field that demanded creativity, adaptability, and vision, qualities they admired in others but never claimed for themselves. The offer was vague, the outcome uncertain, and the path unclear. It was a kind of opportunity that didn't guarantee success, only possibility. Their first instinct was to decline. It felt too risky, too unpredictable, too far from the identity they had spent years shaping. But something inside them hesitated. A small voice, not loud but steady, urged them to look beyond the risk and see the potential waiting inside it. That hesitation was the beginning of everything. The hesitation lingered, weaving itself into their thoughts long after the opportunity was presented. They found themselves replaying the details, imagining what it might feel like to step into a world that demanded more creativity, more courage, more uncertainty than anything they had known. The thought was thrilling, but also terrifying. Risk has a way of illuminating both possibility and fear in equal measure. They began quietly testing the idea in their mind. What if they took the leap? What if the unfamiliar path wasn't a threat, but an invitation? Each time they entertained the thought, a spark flickered, small, but undeniable. Yet just as quickly, doubt rose to counter it. They worried about stability, about expectations, about the opinions of people who believed their reliable path was the right one. This inner tug-of-war grew stronger by the day. Even as they moved through their routine, the opportunity hovered at the edge of their awareness. The familiar tasks that once grounded them now highlighted what they were missing. They noticed how often they operated on autopilot, how seldom they felt challenged, how rarely they felt inspired. The contrast between the life they knew and the life that awaited them sharpened, creating a tension they could no longer ignore. The turning point arrived during a conversation with someone they trusted. As they described the opportunity, with all its uncertainty and risk, they expected to be cautioned against it. Instead, their friend asked a simple question: which version of you does this decision bring to life? The question landed with unexpected force. It reframed the risk not as a danger, but as a doorway. After that conversation, the internal landscape shifted. The fear didn't disappear, but it no longer dominated. In its place grew a sense of curiosity, a pull toward the person they could become if they dared to step into uncertainty. It became clear that the real risk wasn't in taking the opportunity. It was in walking away from it. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, they began to lean toward the unknown. Leaning toward the unknown did not bring clarity. It brought conflict. Two futures now stood before them, each pulling with equal force. One was steady, proven, safe. The other was unpredictable, exhilarating, and entirely uncertain. The tension between these futures shaped every moment of their days, turning even simple decisions into reminders of the choice they had not yet made. They tried to convince themselves that staying where they were made the most sense. Stability had guided them for years, offering security and recognition. But each time they settled back into their routine, the restlessness returned. It showed up in quiet pauses between tasks, in the hollow feeling after predictable accomplishments, in the steady ache of wanting something more. The life they had built no longer matched the person they were becoming. The conflict intensified when they attempted to imagine themselves 5 years into the future. The vision felt strangely dim, predictable, respectable, but lacking the spark that once drove them. It wasn't failure they feared. It was stagnation. The realization unsettled them deeply because it forced them to confront a truth they had resisted. Staying safe had cost them the version of themselves they had not yet grown into. But the idea of taking a risk was equally daunting. They feared losing what they had worked hard to build. They feared making the wrong choice. They feared stepping into a role without guarantees. Doubts circled their mind, tightening with every attempt to picture a future outside the familiar. Reinvention always asks for more than we expect. It asks us to trust ourselves before the world gives us permission. The conflict reached its peak one evening, long after the workday had ended. Sitting alone in the quiet, they reflected on the moment the opportunity first appeared. They remembered the flicker of excitement, the pulse of curiosity, the sense of possibility that felt so alive. And for the first time, they understood something crucial. The fear of change was real, but the fear of remaining unchanged was far greater. This clarity moved through them with surprising force. The life they wanted would never arrive through comfort. It required choosing the unfamiliar, stepping forward with courage instead of certainty, and trusting that growth would meet them on the other side. The internal struggle did not vanish, but the balance had shifted. The pull toward the unimagined path grew stronger, setting the stage for a decision that would redefine everything. In the end, the decision didn't come with a dramatic gesture. It arrived quietly, in a moment of stillness, when they finally acknowledged the truth they had been circling for weeks. The life they wanted required risk. The person they hoped to become lived on the other side of uncertainty. And staying where they were, no matter how safe, would never lead them there. So they said yes. The moment the words left their mouth, fear rushed in. But so did something else. Freedom. For the first time in years, the future felt expansive, not confined. They stepped into the new role with trembling confidence, unsure what awaited them, but certain that the choice aligned with the deepest parts of their ambition. The transition was not smooth. The learning curve was steep. The uncertainty was real. Yet with every challenge, their sense of purpose sharpened. They discovered strengths they didn't know they had. They unlocked creativity that had been dormant under the weight of predictability. Their days were demanding, but they were alive in a way they hadn't felt in years. The risk they once feared became the catalyst for a life that felt entirely new. Opportunities emerged, unexpected, transformative, exciting. Relationships formed that expanded their perspective. Their identity shifted from someone who avoided risk to someone who understood its power. Looking back, they realized the risk had never been a gamble. It had been a doorway, one they would have never walked through if they waited for certainty. And on the other side was a version of themselves they couldn't have imagined before taking that first step. In the end, the real danger was never in the leap. It was in standing still. So what do you think? Are we repeating the same mistake again?